Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I'm Bill, the company's expert. And this is a Q&A. I want to welcome everybody. This is the time of the week where I get on the live stream and you can ask me anything. Anything about employment, anything about careers, anything about job interviews, anything about resumes, anything about the discovery process for jobs, anything about the application process, and anything about alternate ways of getting jobs, anything about networking. And I will do my best to help assist you. So thank you for being here. Hopefully everybody's doing well on this fine Wednesday morning. And usually what I do to start these things is I go over to the polls. If you are a member of my channel or if you subscribe to my channel, I list a poll. I send out a poll every day and people vote for whatever options and we look at these. So you know what? Let's just do that first. Okay, so starting with last week, let's see what you guys are saying. So this went out. The recruiters are, and then you got a range of options between useless and them being awesome. And the winner was recruiters are useful in theory but unhelpful in practice. That's what 52% of you guys said. And who am I to argue with public opinion? So there you go. The people have spoken. Another poll we did was this. When a recruiter asks you, why did you leave your last job? You should explain. And the winner by far is you should explain that you were ready to do more and you aspire to this type of role instead. So yes, I would definitely agree with that. That's the answer I recommend. If you get asked in a job interview, why did you leave your last job? Usually they give you that pointed question. Why did you leave your last job? And it can be pretty awkward if you were fired or there was some kerfuffle at the end that resulted in your leaving, or it's a very long story and it's hard to really make people understand it in 30 seconds. So this is a great way to just summarize everything, not reveal anything bad on your part, and avoid raising any red flags. You just say you were ready to do more and you aspire to do this type of role instead. Okay, another poll that went out this week. The best method to discover jobs is, and you had a range of options here, contact a worker level employee and ask for a job. That did not win, and I agree. That's not a very good way of asking for a job or getting a job. Contact a supervisor level employee and ask for a job. Now, this actually got the most votes here at 41%. I actually would disagree with this. This is not the best way of getting a job. Usually supervisors, like workers, they don't really know very much. They don't have a lot of power, if any. So, it usually doesn't really go that far. Now, obviously, if you have some kind of personal relation with the supervisor and you know them, that's a little bit different. But in general, no. Asking a supervisor is not the best way. And Parth is here. Parth says, hey there. Well, hey there, Parth. Thank you for joining me today. The third option, contact a mid-level manager and ask for the job. This can work, but once again, I would not recommend it. The thing about mid-level managers is that they are busy. They're busy as hell, and they look upon all extra sort of tasks like this usually as a detriment. They don't like it. Also, most mid-level managers aren't facing the public, which means that they're not getting questions from the public, from people outside the organization, unsolicited questions, and so they don't know how to handle it. It's not part of their job, so they don't react very well to it. But the big reason is that they're just way too busy. Okay, and finally, contact an executive manager and ask for the job. Now, the best method to discover jobs is this one right here. Option D, if you want to call it that. Contacting an executive manager and asking for a job. A lot of people are surprised by this, but this is the world we live in. And let me give you the reasons why this is the best way. Obviously, there's a few assumptions here. One of the assumptions is that you know how to contact somebody professionally. Okay, that's a big assumption. if you ambush these people and you ask a very abrasive, hostile, in a very abrasive, hostile way, obviously it's not going to go very far. But if you approach them professionally, you send them a note, you send them a text, you send them an email, you send them a message on LinkedIn, something like that, or you leave a voicemail, something like that. Okay, that is also a possibility. If you're introverted like me, that's not your first choice. But the reason why this works, okay, is first of all, contrary to popular belief, executives have more time than mid-level managers and workers, okay? A lot of their time is unstructured, unscheduled, because they're constantly dealing with unscheduled business like this. Okay, the second reason is that they are public-facing. It is an executive manager's job, it is part of their role, to field unsolicited queries from the public, okay? So believe it or not, they get messages like this all the time. Sometimes it's sent from potential industrial customers, like commercial customers. Sometimes it's sent from regulators. Sometimes it's sent from the media, like journalists or people wanting to do an article or ask you for their opinion, something like that. It's sent from all kinds of people, potential partners, potential suppliers. They're constantly getting communications like this from outside the organization in such a way they don't directly work with. So a lot of people are surprised by this. The other part of this is that, generally speaking, executives are very good at communication, okay, and they know how to communicate properly. So the chances of you contacting them and them getting super paranoid and hostile about it are very low, because usually they deal with this kind of thing on a daily basis. So anyway, I could go on forever, but this is actually the right answer. However, not many people are aware of this, especially younger people, especially people at the worker level. But this is actually how managers and executives get jobs. So you're tapping into that. Okay, next poll that went out. This person cares about me most. Now, this was the Saturday poll, which I'm still going to continue to do, even though I get some flack about it. It's just a fun thing to do. Okay, some people can't take a joke. Some people get really upset that I ask things that are not 100% serious all the time. But this person cares about me the most. And as you can see, the options were my teacher, the recruiter, my last boss, or my next door neighbor. And the winner, ChatGPT. So ChatGPT cares about you the most. That's the voice of the public. That's good. That totally doesn't erode my faith in humanity in any way whatsoever. So that's great. I like finding out new and exciting things like this every day. Next poll. We got a couple more of these left to do. I am highly qualified for a specific job. Therefore, it should be easy for me to get a job offer. This is true or false. The winner, of course, was false. 80%. Yes. It's one thing to be qualified, and that's a wonderful thing, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. However, getting a job is an area of expertise in itself. Okay, if they never have ever taught you anything about the job market or about how the world works, then you might run into some challenges, okay? You're also going to need communication skills, and you're going to need sales skills, because believe it or not, a lot of people don't like to admit it, but a job interview is a sales pitch. You are trying to sell yourself. You're trying to explain how you are the best person for the job and how they absolutely need you and they should hire you. Okay, just as simple as that. Okay, second last one, I believe. A great method to discover jobs is, and you got several options here. Okay, contact a worker level employee to ask for a job. No, that's kind of a bad way. Unless you happen to know the employee, in which case it falls under the umbrella of networking and it could go somewhere. But generally speaking, no, that's not a very good way to discover jobs. Okay. Number 2, contact a supervisor level employee and ask for a job. Once again, that's very similar to this. Very similar to the worker level. Not a great method. Obviously, the exception is if you know the supervisor. If, you have a special relationship with them, Obviously, that's different. But generally speaking, no, this is not a great way to discover jobs, to find out that they're hiring, okay, and to find out that they're hiring somebody with your abilities. Okay, number 3, contact a mid-level manager and ask for the job. It's not the worst idea in the world, but for reasons I explained a moment ago, that's not great either because mid-level managers are usually busy and it's not part of their job usually to face the public. So that I would not choose this one either. A great method to discover jobs is this one, D. This is the answer that I would have chosen. Contact an executive manager and ask for the job. This is actually a really, really awesome and productive way of discovering jobs in the hidden job market. And not only that, but you can discover a lot of good jobs this way. And it's a shortcut. Every complaint you've ever had about the hiring process, if you've ever stressed out over a work gap, if you've ever stressed out over the fact that you don't have great interviewing skills, if you've ever stressed out over the fact that you don't seem to click with recruiters and you can't relate to them and communicate properly to them effectively, any kind of question like this, if you've ever had issues of, being eliminated because of the salary question or the weakness question, if you've had issues over, your previous job, you were let go from it, and so that tends sometimes as a deal breaker when they evaluate you for a job, all those kinds of issues. Or if you're changing careers, okay? Recruiters look for years of experience. The problem is you have no years of experience in the career you're wanting to change to, right? All these issues, you fix them all by doing this. And not only that, the types of jobs that you can discover here are the really good jobs, the good quality jobs, okay? If this is surprising to you, if this is shocking to you, do your own research, start experimenting, you will see this is a way to do it. Okay, I talk about this extensively on my course. This is something that most young people and most people starting off in their careers, say the first 10 years, they're usually unaware of completely. Okay, but the correct answer is this. Okay, none of the above is incorrect. We've got two more, and then I'll go over to the chat. Ways to find a job include, now I included some of the less talked about ways of finding a job. Okay, that means discovering the job opportunity and getting it. So the first one, proactively contacting companies that are growing. This is called growth opportunities. This is actually a very, very untapped way of getting a job. For example, in your hometown, there will be some type of publication. Traditionally, it was like a print media kind of thing, like a magazine or something. But today, you can certainly go to websites, things like government websites about economic development. If you live in a city, you can go to the city's own websites, and they will have something that says news, and it will say like companies that are coming to town, right? We are getting an IKEA, this tech company is coming to town. This manufacturing company is coming to town, right? This retailer, this big retailer that we've all heard of is coming to town, right? Now, what you can do with that information is that company is growing, it's expanding, and it's setting up shop near you. They're going to open a branch office or something. So what you can do is you can contact that company. You can not the switchboard. I'm talking about you go on LinkedIn, you find out there's usually going to be a person. Let's say the company is called Bill Inc. Okay? It's a very catchy name. Bill Inc. is coming to your hometown, which is Cincinnati, United States, the place with the funniest name. So what you could do is you could go on LinkedIn, you could do a search for Bill Inc., that company, and Cincinnati, and you will usually find one or two people. And it'll be the manager in charge of setting up shop. They're probably going to be the branch manager there. You contact them. You say, hey, I hear you're coming to town. I love your company. I think you guys are doing some great stuff. And just so you know, number one, I can help you with that. And number two, I've got some great skills that are probably what you guys might be looking for, or what you guys are looking for. So if ever you're looking, let me know. I'm right here. I'm willing to help. I can help map out the local lay of the land for you if you're not from here. And I can help you in your startup phase. And a lot of times companies will say, hey, I appreciate your enthusiasm. And assuming you have some skills that, they could possibly use, they'll probably take you up on it. All you need is good communication skills. And there you go. So this is actually a very untapped method of getting jobs. It's called a growth opportunity. I did a live stream on my channel not many years ago, but a couple of years ago. If you do a search, you can find it. I talk all about it. Okay, job fairs. This is more for students coming out of school, high school or university or college or trade school, but definitely, okay. Industry trade shows and events. Yes, you make all kinds of connections at these. If you are interested in working at a certain company, you can go up, you could talk to their representative, you could talk to their, sometimes they'll send like a senior representative depending on the size of the company. There you go. Bam. You're on a first name basis with somebody at the company. You get their business card, you call them, and that's your ticket in. Informational interviews. If you don't know what an informational interview is, you should learn. This is a gold mine that allows you to not only discover jobs, great jobs, but if you ever wanted to learn about anything, this is a way to obtain that information, some special insider knowledge of some industry, okay, some job you would like to have. How does it work? What do you guys look for? Where's that industry going? Blah, blah, blah. This is incredible. This is where you, in a nutshell, you get together with somebody and you're not there to be evaluated for a job. You're there just to interview them, to ask them some questions and have them give you the answers, right? For example, if you're coming out of university and you want to be a lawyer, I don't know, just as an example, okay? Well, trying to figure out what to do, you might have a whole bunch of questions about how the law industry works and what the expectations are, all the stuff that they don't state explicitly, you can't find on the internet, right? All that knowledge, okay? Wouldn't it be useful if you could sit down with a senior partner of a local law firm and just ask them anything and have them just explain how everything works to you? Wouldn't that be useful to you? That's an informational interview, okay? How to get these and how to do these is really not that hard. I talk extensively on this channel about it, okay? And obviously, this leads to a lot of opportunities if you're just looking for a job. The key, though, is you're not there saying, I need a job. You're there to learn, but it can be a way in to get a great job. So all of the above is the correct answer, okay? And some of these are actually really good, especially informational interviews. And finally, this is the poll that's out today. So if you haven't voted on this, if you're a subscriber of mine, go and vote. It just says, I am at the worker level, supervisor level, manager level, executive level, or none of the above. I'm self-employed. Go and cast your vote. And I'm interested to see where everybody is. It helps me kind of tailor the type of information I put out. So there we go. That's the poll. So I see there's 40 people here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. We're here to do some self-improvement. Hopefully I can help you. If you have any questions, this is a Q&A. So just get in the chat. You should see the chat right next to my video if you're watching this on YouTube. And send me your question and I will do my best to help you out. Okay, so let's go over to the chat here. So we have Crystal. Crystal says, good morning. Second interview tomorrow. Advice? Well, general advice for a second interview is the thing that I get that question on a regular basis, and this is what I say. Sometimes, if you're dealing with either a recruiter or a hiring manager, you've been to a first interview, you've had some interaction with these people, they'll try and create a bit more of an informal type vibe, right? So what this leads to is when you go back for a second interview, you feel a bit more comfortable and you feel like you know these people and you're not talking to total strangers anymore. You're talking to friends, right? And they play on this and they try and get you to open up and be a little more candid, a little more casual. You start talking more off the cuff. You start talking off the top of your head about things. And bam, that's where they get you. Okay. So remember, for a second interview, they're going to want to go deeper into things. Okay. Second interview, handle it like it's a first interview in terms of being guarded and being prepared. Okay. Don't go in there and have a super informal kind of vibe, because a lot of times that's an illusion they're trying to manufacture. You have to be pretty guarded, just like you were in your first interview, and be careful about what you say, because they're still looking to scrape up dirt on you. They're looking to peel away the layers and find out all the reasons why they wouldn't hire you. Everybody always presents a image of them being awesome. And what recruiters and hiring managers do in interviews, understandably, is they try and peel away that facade and see who this person really is. Okay, that's really what their goal is. And you don't want to be fooled into thinking that anything has changed from the first interview. So the first round of interviews, usually their goal is to do like a sudden death elimination on 50% of the candidates. Like, they're not really going very deep. They're just saying, oh, okay, instant elimination. This person wants too much money. This person appears crazy. This person has a real attitude issue. This person doesn't seem to understand how to communicate properly or appropriately. Sudden death elimination. Now, on the second round, they take the sort of finalists from the first round, and now they're going to try and go a bit deeper. They're going to try and get to know you a little bit more and actually see what makes you tick. Okay, so that's usually what's going on there. Hopefully that helps, Crystal. Parth, love that most people chose ChatGPT. Hilarious. I know, that's awesome. That's awesome. And if you don't know ChatGPT, it's some fearsome technology. I mean, that, like, the way that's going to change things. Holy crap. Put it this way. It has a ton of potential, especially once they start combining that with a bunch of other emerging technologies they've got coming out now. That is absolutely fearsome. It's gonna really change the world, because, quite frankly, I don't know about you guys, but for me, the last 20 years, we've been kind of coasting. I mean, yeah, there's been advancements, but like, I remember when the internet came in, like, that changed everything. And then when Google came in, that changed quite a bit. The internet was actually useful. And then things like YouTube, useful, Facebook, useful. But, like, for me anyway, there hasn't been anything really, like, massive since then. This has the potential to be absolutely massive. Not only is it useful now, but when you start incorporating this into a lot of things that are already being done right now, it has the potential to change everything. So I think it's very, very exciting. Whether OpenAI will be leading the charge on this ultimately is another matter. But for right now, it's pretty fearsome. Okay. Miriam says, that's good. Just keep that in your head the whole day. Have you seen The Whale? No, it looks actually pretty depressing. I've heard it's good, but quite frankly, the subject matter doesn't appeal to me. And is that a comment about my weight? I have had to endure so many fat jokes being on YouTube, but that's okay. WCK Champion. Hi, Bill. My experience with networking on LinkedIn. Connecting to CXO people does not always work. Most of them reject your invitation. Some of them even told me to apply on the company website. Yeah, well, it depends how you do it. And, this is the thing. Okay, let's pretend, just like people are trying to step into this world. Let's think back to when you were, 16 years old, and you're trying to step into this world, the world that a lot of people are in, which is applying for posted jobs. They had to explain to you that you have to send in an application to a job, and then you had to interview, and then you didn't have a clue how to do an interview. You'd go to the interview, you'd be dressed in sweatpants, and, you'd be like, so can I get a job? And they're like, no. And then people have to explain to you that, you don't say it like that. You have to be really polite. And, there's a lot of sort of principles involved, right? Okay. Well, the same is true of this world. Now, yes, if you apply for a job and you go to a job interview and the first person doesn't hire you, you can conclude that, oh, this method, this is crap. It doesn't work. Well, as we know, incorrect. If you keep applying for jobs and you do it properly, you follow several principles. There's probably about 30 principles you could enumerate that you're conforming to, right? Things you've learned throughout your life. Then it does work, right? This is exactly the same thing. You've got to say the right thing. You've got to go to the right people, right? And then the other thing is that it's not going to work 100% of the time. Just like applying for a job doesn't work 100% of the time. It works what? 1% of the time? How many interviews do you have to go to get a job? 5, 10, 20, right? Okay, so same thing here. At least 50% of executives that you send a message to, if it's done correctly, and you've sent it to an applicable person, okay? Those are two big ifs. Over 50% of them will either not respond or they'll have a less than favorable response, okay? But this method is actually really, really, really effective, okay? If you sent out your message to 200 people and you had a 10% return rate of favorable responses, well, there you go. That's 20 executives you can sit down with, So, yeah, it does work. But you're right. It doesn't always work, just like nothing always works. So the key is learning all those little principles that are at play here, okay? If you send a message on LinkedIn, for example, one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to say, who is this person? They're going to go check out your LinkedIn profile. And if you have a picture, like I've seen some of the pictures that people put on their LinkedIn profiles. They're like, all these kind of like really intense looks. They do not look approachable at all. They don't look friendly. They're like, or they look like really, really uncomfortable or really sad or really angry. It's like, that's kind of a red flag right off the bat, right? Then if they look at your LinkedIn profile, it's riddled with spelling errors. It's riddled with a bunch of things that don't make sense. Or it says things like, and this could be legitimate, but it says like salesperson, this kind of thing. They're like, okay, they're trying to sell me something. So there's a bunch of principles at play here that, you have to appreciate and get into. I built, like I've said 1,000 times, I've built a consulting business just doing this method. I sat down with, I can't even remember, it's been so many years, but like hundreds of CEOs of companies that I don't know. Most of them I've never met in person. Most of them are sort of cold contacts that you contact over LinkedIn, right? And you end up doing informational interviews. A lot of the times, you had a very pleasant conversation, doesn't go anywhere. Some of them, it goes on to be to the point where they're your clients and, you have other things that come out of that relationship. So yeah, it does work. But you're stepping into a new world. There's a whole set of principles you got to learn. It continues. Okay, so my strategy is to go both ways. Networking and old school resumes through recruiters. Okay, sure. Yeah, you're kind of... Okay, hey, who cares? Who cares? Who am I to tell you what to do? But that's like saying, okay, well, I tried it once. I went to one job interview. They didn't hire me, so I've concluded the job interviews don't work, and I'm just going to go back to digging ditches, or something like, you know what I mean? Make sure you're not arriving at the wrong conclusion. I also connect to recruiters and headhunters, pros who are paid to search for selected roles. Okay, good for you. Travel Fund says, nice channel. Thank you, Travel Fund. How do you say this? Iraj says, hello, sir. I was wondering how to get a remote job in the IT sector from US companies while I'm in Canada. Okay, well, I'm not I got to say right off the hop, like I'm not a immigration expert. So that aspect of it, I can't really give you any meaningful advice on it. But I see what you're saying. You want a remote job. So you want to be, you're in Canada, but you want to work for American companies? Okay. Usually it's the other way around. Remote job. Well, I don't know. Any of the job search methods will work, right? You could apply for jobs. You could do networking, which is the most effective of all of them. You could do any of the things that I covered in the polls that I just went over at the beginning of this live stream. All of those will work. Crystal says, cool, thanks. Good. Pedro says, hi, Bill. From your experience, what would be the best approach to go back to the same level or industry when moving abroad? Focused on real estate development, I moved from Brazil to Canada. Once again, like I just said, I'm not an expert on immigration. So I'm not, there are dedicated resources and even YouTube channels that like focus specifically on that. In my experience, when you're moving from one country to another country, you're going from your home country to a host country. Okay. In the host country, generally, one of the biggest hurdles to get over is the lack of host country experience. Okay. So you're going to have to come up with a solution to that. Now, what a lot of people do is they work like whatever job they can get, might be a menial job, low level job, even though they're like a, highly skilled professional, they might have to do that for a little bit, to be able to get host country experience so that you have a reference from somebody in the host country that's worked with you, that can vouch for you, give you a personal reference and say, I worked with this person. They're awesome. They're punctual. They've got a good work ethic, things like that. If you're trying to get the type of job where you have to go through a recruiter, you kind of need that, because some of the challenges I've faced with hiring people that have sent in their applications is that their references are like halfway around the world in another country. They don't speak your language. Their qualifications are unknown to you, so you have no idea how much weight it carries and how good of a statement it is. Like, there's all kinds of issues like this. So that leads to people requiring host country experience. You might be able to get around that if you have some kind of sponsorship. Once again, I'm not an expert on that stuff, so I would look that up. If you're a professional wanting to set up shop, like wanting to have your own business, your private practice or, whatever, there's also the hurdle of the regulatory requirements, depending on what industry you're in. So, these are all things to research. Okay. It's kind of outside the scope of what I can really go into now, but, my recommendation would be to like investigate those, because those are going to be by far your biggest challenges. Okay. If your challenge is not doing the job, you already know how to do the job. You're already proven. It's just issues related to being in your host country. So I would focus on those. Crystal says, LOL, wow. Whoa. Hopefully that's good. Hopefully that's good news. Not wow in a bad way. Usually that's whoa, right? People go, whoa, right? That's kind of, it's in a bad way. MA says, hi, Bill. A recruiter contacted me for an expat role with a salary in dollars. Later on, he reached out to me for a similar role, local role with a salary in the local currency. Can I negotiate the salary in dollars? Well, if you're in your home country and you're getting a job in your home country, it's going to be in your home currency. Okay, that's usually how you pay people. I don't know how common it is to pay somebody a foreign currency. Like, I understand if you have a multinational corporation, maybe they're based in, say, the United States, so their primary currency is American dollars. That's their reporting currency. But they have large operations in other countries, okay, in host countries. So if you're in a host country, maybe the corporation is setting up a branch office in your host country. Their currency that they normally would deal with would be US dollars, but you're in, say, India. So they're going to want to pay you in rupees, but you want to get paid in US dollars. I'm not an expert in that, but I don't think that's done very often. Their default would be to pay you in rupees if you were in India, right? Even if it's an American company, right? I'm not sure why they would have discussed salary in say, American dollars, if that's what they did. Maybe as a frame of reference, or maybe with the understanding that you would travel for part of your job. I'm not sure. But you might be able to negotiate that, but be prepared for them to like just shut that down because it's not something that they do, especially if you're at the sort of the worker level. Okay. I would just make sure that they're paying you an acceptable amount in your host currency. That would be how I would handle that. I mean, if I was, say, a vice president in charge of like, operations in that country, I wouldn't want to do that because everything in your operation is linked to that currency. There's political risk, there's financial risk, associated with that operation. And you want to keep it all like do all business in rupees if it's India. You don't want to mix and match. Some people get paid in US, or some expenses are paid in US dollars, some expenses are paid in rupees in India. That would be a nightmare for your finance people and for your accountants. The accountants would be able to cope with it, but finance people trying to predict the risk you run for operations in that country, that would be a nightmare. So my gut feeling is they would not want to do that. I'm not saying they couldn't if you really push for it, but it would not be their first choice. There's an incentive to not do that. Hopefully that makes some sense, MA. Miriam says, yeah, good way to be. Chris says, hello, I'm looking for a better job as a game programmer, but there are some companies that ask for a practical test before reporting the salary. Is that a red flag? No, it's not necessarily a red flag. It's kind of annoying, especially if you are a seasoned veteran, like you've had a lot of experiences and you have a lot of accomplishments under your belt, that it's pretty obvious that you know what you're doing. But I wouldn't read it as a red flag, especially in the current economic climate, which is, as I understand it, like right now, things in the tech sector are not going great for job seekers. Okay, it's a bit of a bust period. Hopefully there'll be another boom and kind of everything gets back on the upswing. But for right now, you might have to sort of put up with these kinds of requirements for them to consider you, if that's what they're wanting. It's not a red flag in itself. I mean, it depends the way they did it also, but in itself, no, it's not necessarily a red flag. I mean, that being said, I wouldn't go that route. I wouldn't go from the bottom up, talking to recruiters and, people at the bottom. I would talk to executives and go down. That's just a much better way of doing things. And you can, bet your bottom dollar that they won't be asking you for like technical evaluations and stuff like that when you go from the top down. As simple as that. Joe says, a lot of people call themselves expert, but Bill really is one. Thank you for all you do, Bill. You have helped more people than you will ever know. Well, thank you very much, Joe. That makes my day. And it's very, very gracious of you to say stuff like that. Thank you very much. I just speak about stuff I know about. Unfortunately, sometimes I speak about things I don't know that much about, depending on what questions people ask. But no, I mean, listen, my blanket thing is that, first of all, listening to people's advice is good. It has its place. But if it's something very important, go out and corroborate it, okay? And the best way to validate something is to try it, okay? Don't just listen to advice all day long. Go out and experiment. Go out and try things, okay? I mean, manage your risk. Don't do anything stupid that's going to blow up in your face and cause you a world of pain. But, try things, right? That's the only way to learn, really. And then you will have a hell of a lot of confidence about what you do know, because what you do know has been demonstrated right in front of your eyes. So no one can tell you, oh, that never happens or that's not true. It's like, no, it is true. I've seen it. I've been there. I've done it. Don't tell me it can't be done. I've done it. Right. So, that's the thing. If I say something that you think that doesn't sound right or that can't be true or whatever, don't take my word for it. Go out and corroborate it, first of all, with your own independent research. And beyond that, try it, whatever it is. If it's possible to try it, do it and see for yourself. Okay? But thank you. Pedro says, thank you for the answer. I appreciate it. No, not a problem, Pedro. I'm here to do what I can. WCK Champion. Joe is really right. Well, thank you, WCK Champion, and thank you for coming back. WCK Champion is pretty much a regular on a lot of my live streams, so that's really awesome. Camilla D says, tell me about yourself. What should you include? Well, I've done a video. It's one of the most popular videos on my channel. It's got like 3 or 4 million views or something, about how to answer that. And I can give you a short version here. The short version is usually they use this as an icebreaker, and usually it's used by people who don't know how to interview properly as an icebreaker. The way I would recommend people answer is you can start off by saying the phrase, well, as you can see from my resume. You don't have to say it. You have to say it a certain way so it doesn't sound arrogant and condescending if you do say it, but it's a good memory jog to remember how to answer this question. Well, as you can see from my resume, and then you summarize your resume in 45 seconds. You start with your education. I have this degree. I have this certificate. And then you give a very brief overview of your work history. I started out working for this company. I was there for 5 years in this role. Then I moved to this company, and in the same role, I worked for them for 2 years. And then I moved over to this role where I became the supervisor of those people at this company where I currently am now. But then, so you do your work experience in reverse chronological order. So, or chronological order, I guess, where you start with the oldest and you come up to the present. And then you say at the end, you end by saying, and that's what brings me here today and why I'm excited to learn more about this job or this position, right? Because, I mean, well, just watch my video on it. There's like reasoning behind everything in there. And to answer your question, that's how I would answer it. Chris says, thank you for your time. Your content is very helpful. Thank you. That's very kind of you, Chris. Mihai, if I'm saying that right. Hi, Bill. Isn't asking a question like, what's your current salary unprofessional? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Depending on how they do it, like obviously it's something that they want to know. Okay. But it's not unprofessional. Now, in my opinion, and what I think that everybody else should have this attitude too, is that it's certainly crossing the line into asking about something that's personal and confidential, right? It is not within your best interests to give them an honest answer to that question, okay? What another company is paying you is none of their business, nor are they entitled to that information. And as far as I know, around the world, like different countries have different rules and things, different laws, but certainly where I am, in Canada, in the United States, as far as I know, in the European Union, everywhere, and also in Britain and places like that, they can't find that information. They can't go and access your salary history, and look it up on like a government website or something, or some kind of registry. They don't have the ability to see that. Okay, that's why they're asking you, because if you don't tell them, they won't know. The only way they could possibly know the answer to that if they asked you and you told them. Right? It's like knowing what somebody's credit card number is. Right? If they don't want to give you that, if they want to keep that from you, they can't just find that out. That's personal and confidential. So I don't believe you should answer it fully and completely, but it's not an unprofessional question. Depending on where you are and the laws in your particular region and employment standards, you could get asked that question. That's something that you should expect. Okay. I know there are some places in the world where they've passed laws that say questions like this, it's not okay for recruiters to ask them, but the impression I get is that the majority of places, this is still something they can ask. And there's no issue with it. You just have to be prepared for a question like this. So, and just for the record, if somebody asked me, what's your current salary? I would say, well, I have a personal policy of not disclosing how much money I make because it's personal and confidential. I'm sure you understand. You don't have to make it awkward. You don't have to make it abrasive and rude. It just find a professional way to answer the question without giving them what they want, without killing the vibe of the interaction. That's the key. Camilla D says, okay, I will have to check it out. Oh yeah, okay, the video for Tell Me About Yourself. Yes. Gilby says, my questions aren't showing up. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. People say that. I guess YouTube has some kind of filter, but I mean, I can see your comment just then, so maybe try again, Gilby. I don't know if you're using any words that are like a red flag or something. Maybe check for that. If you can ask it, I don't know. I might not. I was going to say if you could put it in the comments, but I can't see those where I am right now. But try again. I will be happy to answer. Alabra Lala, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. Says, how to react if I see exactly the same job posting reopen after I was rejected for the first one a couple of weeks earlier. Apply again? Well, listen. There's a couple of possible reasons for that. One of which is that it's a bad company just doing underhanded things. I've seen that before where they just repost and repost. They have a perpetual post up. And sometimes it's legitimate. They have a high turnover in that particular role, so they're always looking for new people, right? That does occur. But other times it's more nefarious than that. They are doing something underhanded. So if you applied for it and they rejected you, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from applying again. I'm not going to tell you don't apply if you really want to do it, but I would look elsewhere, okay? I would move on. There are many, many other opportunities out there, okay? Most of them are hidden. Most of them are in the hidden job market. That means that the job is there. Someone wants to hire someone, but they haven't posted it publicly where you can discover it. Okay, the way you discover those is you talk to people. You approach them. You say, hey, I'm here. I think your company's awesome. I have skills in this. I solve this problem. If ever you're looking for someone that can help you with that, let me know. Otherwise, you have yourself a great day. You put a message like that out to hundreds of people on things like LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. You could do it other ways too. I mean, you could cold call people if you wanted to, but most people don't want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. It's far more easy just to do it from LinkedIn. You could do it from your home. You don't have to speak to anyone in person. You don't have to have an awkward phone call, and it's a lot quicker. So, you can tap those jobs. I would move on to other things rather than, beating your head against the wall for things like this. That just looks, without knowing anything more about it, already that's a red flag for me. Reposting the same job perpetually. So I would move on. Hopefully that helps. Camilla, that was super helpful. Thank you. You're welcome, Camilla. Exactly. It's none of their business. I didn't answer these type of questions on my application. Yeah. There's a lot of like the reality is if you go to a traditional sort of job interview for like a lower level job where you have a recruiter and maybe a hiring manager. I mean, as I said, all candidates try and present this like awesome, really this amazing image of themselves. We're the best employee ever. We're awesome as a person. We don't have any flaws, right? And the job of the recruiter or the interviewer, what they're trying to do, obviously, is they're trying to peel back that facade and see what's underneath. They want to get the dirt on you. They want to see, okay, what's this person actually like? What are their flaws? Okay? I'm sure they're not as perfect as they're making out. What are their flaws? What are their issues? What do they not want me to know? Okay? I want to get a true impression of who they are. Right? That's what they're trying to do. It's this kind of cat and mouse type game, right? You know, so they're going to ask a lot of questions like this. Sometimes they will ask you very direct, very probing questions. And it's hard to know how to answer them properly because, you know, the classic example is like some form of, what is your weakness? They say, why wouldn't we hire you? What's wrong with you? What's your weakness? Right? And, you know, especially younger people, you know, if you haven't done a lot of these and you're just stepping into this world, you feel this pressure to like be forthcoming. You know, these are the people that I want to impress. They're the ones that I want to work with. And, you know, I don't want to be a jerk to them. I want to earn their favor. And I earn their favor by answering their questions and giving full and complete information on what they're wanting to know, right? You know, but the problem is this, okay? If you give them full and complete information on what they want to know, and what they want to know is what's wrong with you, okay? You're going to just hand them all kinds of reasons not to select you, right? What's your weakness? You know, well, you know, I'm really not motivated. I have a bad work ethic. I sometimes just hate getting up and going to work. I find it really tedious. I really, really wish I could just stay home and watch TV. And I hate it when people tell me what to do. I mean, I know people are my boss and they tell me what to do, but I hate that on a personal level. And if you even look at me the wrong way, I get really upset. And then I start insulting you. That's just who I am, you know? And I refuse to change, right? You know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you start revealing all this stuff. The problem is that you're up against another candidate that they're also interviewing. And when they ask the other candidate these same questions, you know, what's wrong with you? What's your weakness? Why shouldn't we hire you? They deflect all those questions and they don't give them any dirt on them. They say, well, I don't really have any weaknesses. I mean, somebody told me I care too much. You know, somebody told me I work too hard, right? I mean, obviously that's a joke, but you get the idea, right? Now, if you were the interviewer, which of those two people would you pick? Right? They've heard all these red flags from you, and they haven't heard any from the other person. Now, in a perfect world, people would make the mental leap and say, oh, well, this person, at least I think they're being honest. This person is not quite so honest, so maybe I'll choose the honest person. But really, it's not quite as simple as that. If you're hiring somebody to watch your dog or your kids, you know, something important, and you yourself are the interviewer and you talk to those two candidates, and one of them gave you all kinds of dirt on them, all kinds of things that raise a red flag, they raise an eyebrow when you hear it. Wow, this person has a bad attitude and they said some kind of alarming things. Whereas this person didn't say anything that, you know, really caused you to concern or to hesitate. What we find is that people usually choose that person. Stupid, but it's true. Right? Despite all the talk about how you should be honest and, you know, all this kind of stuff, the perfect employee is honest. The perfect employee fully discloses whatever the boss wants to know, you know, about their job and about how the work's going. But yet they hire people that have a talent in not doing that. Ironic, isn't it? But the goal of this process, the goal that you should have at every stage of this process is to get to the next stage of the process. So how do you pass the interview? You pass the interview by not giving the dirt on yourself. Okay? And that's why we have to kind of be guarded on some of these answers. And we have to prepare. We have to prepare for some of these questions. Preparation is the key. Let's see, where are we here? So hopefully that makes sense, Camilla D. I think I was here. MA, I was interviewed by a C-level executive a month ago. I haven't heard back from them. Can I contact him or the HR manager on LinkedIn to know how far? Yes, you certainly can. However, unless it's a exceptional situation. Sorry to give you bad news, but it really looks like the answer is no. Okay. If they want to go with you, usually like 95% of the time, they're going to get back to you and tell you. They're not just going to like leave you hanging for a month, right? The way these things usually go in the real world, as you may know already, is that most people, they don't like to be the bearer of bad news. They don't like to call you and say, I'm sorry, we're not moving forward with you. Instead, they would rather just drop off the face of the planet and not say anything. In addition, coincidentally, it's also less work for them. So when you put those two things together, that's usually what we see. So if you haven't heard back, what that communicates is that 95% or more likelihood, it's a no. Okay, no harm in verifying, no harm in following up, but just be prepared for that. Okay, don't look back, always look forward. The way I would recommend people do a job search is you pursue one opportunity after another. Okay, you just obtained an interview, great. You just went to the interview, great. You just found another great job posting, you applied for it, great. You just got a message from some executive at some local company that said, yeah, let's get together and talk. You go and you do that, right? You're always looking for the next thing. Now, if one of those things leads to something, you get a call back. Yeah, you take the call and you pursue it as far as it goes, but you're never stopping to just, okay, I got to follow up on this. I got to follow up on that. I got to follow up on the executive. I got to follow up on that job application. I got to contact this hiring manager to see where that went. I wouldn't do any of that, because if you don't hear from them, that's kind of the universal signal of no or not right now. Okay. And the other part of that is that it's not a reflection on you. It's just that they happen to be looking for something else, or the timing isn't right for them needing someone like you. It's not happening right now. Okay? It's no fault of your own. It's no fault of theirs. It didn't line up, right? Okay, but somewhere out there right now, there's an employer who's looking for someone with what you have, okay? They're over here looking for you. You're down here saying, hey, I got these things, right? You're just not connecting. So the goal is to try and connect at the right time. You're available right when they happen to be looking for someone like you, right? It's a very serendipitous process. And the way you get that to work out is you focus on quantity, okay, pursuing as many opportunities as you can, and also quality at the same time. Good opportunities, as good as you can possibly get them, right? Both of those will result in a higher likelihood of a match. So that's what this is. That's what this is, okay? I mean, we see this in life. You see some person who's a salesperson that really values sales skills. And then we see another person who's a technical person that doesn't give a rat's ass about sales skills. They value technical skills, right? Now, maybe you have one or the other, right? And you talk to the person that values sales skills when you're a technical person who has technical skills. They didn't see your value. It's not a reflection on you. You can't go away saying like, oh, I'm unemployable and I have no skills. It's like, wrong. It just wasn't a match with that person. They place value on different things. A lot of times they place value on stupid things, right? So it just didn't work out. Okay, I could go on forever, but I'll just come back to earth here and continue. Where did I leave off here? This has scrolled since I looked at it. Oh, here we go. Marishka says, "Hi, Bill. Should I tell to a recruiter or headhunter my salary expectation?" I did a long live stream yesterday just on that question. How to answer the question, what are my salary what are your salary expectations? It's also the most popular video on my YouTube channel. It's got like 5 million views. So check out that popular video of mine. And if you want to go deeper, I did a like hour and a half live stream yesterday talking all about every facet of like salary as it comes up in interviews or the negotiating process, all of that. So check that out. It's not something I can just summarize in like 30 seconds. Sorry, there's a bit to it. So check those out, Mariska. There's some information there. MA, please, what specific advice do you have when one is being interviewed by C-level? When you're being interviewed by them, like you're talking about a job interview, or you're talking about an informational interview. If you're talking about a job interview, it depends what for. Like you can be a worker getting a worker level job, a low level job, and sometimes you get an executive in attendance, right? That does occur. And the reason they would be there is to look at high level stuff. They care about your attitude. They care about, very high level stuff like your ambition, your communication skills, things like that, your values. That's what they care about. Okay. Now, if you're a mid-level manager doing a job interview with an executive manager, obviously the dynamic is going to be completely different. They're going to be asking you about how you do your job as a mid-level manager. Okay. I understand you're a warehouse manager. You've set up and run several warehouses in this type of industry or this type of environment on this scale. Okay. In this, as I said, in this environment, maybe it's a unionized environment. Maybe it's, whatever, highly regulated environment, maybe a hazardous materials environment, whatever, right? They want to know how you do it. What do you do? Because there's many different approaches and there's many different ways you could do it, right? What's your way of doing it? So you can explain your approach, you can explain your reasoning, and then you can explain all the little nitty-gritty technical details that may come up too. I mean, it depends what context. If you're doing an informational interview, that's a little bit different. But I think that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about a job interview. If you could qualify a little bit, MA, I'd be happy to go a bit more in depth if you had any details of precisely what you're asking. Camilla D says, is it okay to ask about the turnover? How many years on average people work there? That tells you a lot whether this job is good or not. Here's the deal. Technically, no, there's nothing wrong with asking that question. There is nothing wrong at all, technically, with asking pointed questions where you're trying to get the dirt on them. Okay? Nothing stopping you from doing it. No issue preventing you from doing that. However, what you're doing to them is the same thing that they would do to you when they ask you, what's your current salary, right? Do you enjoy being asked that? Is it something that you're happy to divulge? No, right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to get the dirt on this company. And I understand. This is the kind of stuff we would love to know. This is the kind of stuff that's very important to know before you accept a job with them. If they have like 100% turnover every year in the role that you're going into, that's obviously something you'd like to know, right? If it's a toxic environment and people are driven away constantly and, this is stuff you'd like to know. I agree. You would love to ask this. However, I would advise people in a job interview not to ask those type of questions. Not because it's not useful information, but because what you're engaged in is you're engaged in a sales pitch for yourself. You're trying to convince them to hire you, that you're the most awesome person. And if you're the candidate that made them feel uncomfortable because you asked pointed questions like that they had to sort of wriggle out of because they can't really be honest. If they were honest, they would reveal bad things about their organization, and not doing that is one of the parameters of their job. Like if you ask them, what would be a classic example of this? You would say, you'd ask the recruiter, it's a recruiter, you'd say, what's the absolute worst aspect for you of working here, right? What do you hate about working at this company the most? Like you would obviously love to know the answer to that, right? But you're putting them on the spot, you're asking a hostile question, and they're going to have to try and wriggle out of it. It's going to be a little bit awkward for them, and they're not going to get a warm, fuzzy feeling about you. They'll think, you're the one that made me feel uncomfortable with all those pointed kind of combative questions. So if it's a choice between you or another candidate that just made them feel good about interviewing them was a pleasure. They were charismatic. They were enjoyable to talk to. When the meeting ended, the recruiter felt, I could sit and talk to that person all day. They were awesome, right? If that's your competitor and you're the one that's been putting them on the spot and made them feel uncomfortable, it's going to count against you. So, as I say, the purpose of every step in the process is to get to the next step. You want the callback, okay? Now, there will be a time when you do have the option of getting this information. That's at the end. That's when they've given you an offer, okay? That's when, they've sent you a draft employee contract, and they're saying you can sign it. And then you say, well, wait a minute, I got a couple of questions first, And anyway, stuff like this, considering the source, you may not get accurate information from them anyway. You might have to obtain this information through other means, okay? You might want to do research on the company to find some of this stuff. You might want to, go to Glassdoor, PayScale, Salary.com, where, they have reviews of the company and things like that. You might want to go to alternate sources. Okay, there's nothing wrong with asking it, but I would just advise against it, even though it's stuff you'd want to know. Okay, what's the point of going there if you're just going to eliminate yourself? That's kind of the bottom line. You don't want to do anything that could increase your chances of them eliminating you. Okay, there will be a time after they make you an offer. That's when you take care of a lot of these caveats and concerns and do this. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Okay, where did I leave off here? Okay, Alabra says, thanks a lot. Unfo, like info. It's a really big company, and they have disclosed a lot of red flags in the first interview about themselves. Maybe they're looking for someone with superpowers. Thanks. Move on. Yes. Yeah, I mean, look, if you've given it a shot and it just hasn't gone very well, and they've given you, like, as you say, some red flags, yeah, keep going, keep moving. There's a lot of opportunities out there. And I'm not just talking about posted jobs. Posted jobs are 20% of the jobs that are out there. Usually they're the worst 20%. Okay? And I've said this before, I'll say it again. The way this stuff works is that, let's say a mid-level manager in a company decides, I really need an extra employee here. I need to hire I supervise 10 people. I really need an 11th. The workload is just getting too much for these 10 people and myself. Okay, I need to hire another person. And they're given a budget in some way, shape, or form. So, they've decided, no, it's worth the money. We could, we'll give up some of our money to have an 11th employee in this department. It's well worth it. I'm at that point, right? Now, let's say this is a very good job. It's a very desirable job. You've got a great bunch of people. They work really well together. They're all super friendly. They're supportive of each other. The job itself makes a lot of money. Maybe you work in an industrial type industry where, for a small number of people, they generate a lot of money, right? A lot of profit. That's usually how it works in, business to business type stuff. Not universally, but generally, yeah. Business to consumer, it's kind of the opposite. You got like a lot of people and you only got like a little bit of profit. So it changes how things work a little bit. But, they're wanting to hire somebody. Well, if you were to post the job publicly, first of all, you'd have to hire, someone from HR. You'd have to, whether they're internal to the company, you have to take up all their time, or they're external, you hire a recruiting company to do this. You have to officially create the job posting. You have to approve the job description, the job title. You have to officially approve the salary. You have to think of all the requirements. You have to think up all this stuff ahead of time, talk it over with a recruiter, talk it over with possibly somebody else, have them all approve it. I mean, this is a lot of work. for a mid-level manager who's trying to run a business operation. This is like a sideshow. Okay? So all of this takes up your time. Then it takes up money. You've got to pay recruiters. You've got to pay for posting this job. You got to pay for publicizing the job. Then on top of that, you've got rounds of job interviews to go through. You've got to do background checks. You've got to do all kinds of stuff. Like, if you think about the man hours involved and everybody's time taken up with doing this, this costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do this. Okay? So this is not their first choice of how to do it. Alternatively, if the executive just knows somebody, like, hey, you know, a week ago when I went to this trade show, you know, we had our big exhibit at the trade show for our industry. I met several people that came up and talked to me, some people that were very enthusiastic about what we were doing, some people that told me that, you know, they would love to work for the company, and we seemed to get along really well, and they seemed to have all the skills. I have their card right here. Maybe I'll give them a call, bring them in for an interview, have them interview with me, have them interview with a couple other people, maybe even bring in a recruiter just to get their opinion. And if they work out, let's just hire them. Then we can get rolling on this. Total cost, next to nothing. Chances you're getting a good employee, very high. This is a person who contacted you. They impressed you already. You've met them already. You know how you work together. You know you've had a taste of their soft skills, how great they are at communicating, at collaborating. Are they actually genuinely interested in doing this kind of work? Yes, they are. So that's usually the first place that a lot of managers will look, right? So they end up calling that person or a couple of people, right, that they happen to know and say, are you available? You know, maybe we should get together and talk. There might be an opportunity. I don't know yet, but let's get together. You know, and you have a sort of informal interview, which is basically a conversation between two people. It's not like a formal job interview. And that's the first step in the hidden job market. Okay? You're tapping the hidden job market if you've done that. So that's the first place they look. Now, let's say they come up short. Oh, I don't happen to know anyone that you know, might be a fit for that. So then they look internally. Is there anyone in here that I could maybe promote up, or I could move sideways into this role? It's not as good as, you know, hiring a great person from outside, but because it creates another vacancy, because you're moving somebody out of something into this role. But it solves my problem. So you look at that. But if the answer is no, there's nobody internally that would be a candidate that would make sense for us to put in this role. Then we go to our third option. The third option is you're a manager, you walk out of your office, you go over to the HR department, and you say, hey, do you have any resumes on file, people you might have talked to in the last, I don't know, couple of months that looked really promising? We weren't able to hire them, but they were very good nonetheless. You know, that might still be looking, that might be a contender for this role. Instead of posting it publicly and starting from scratch, let's just call up these people, see if they're interested, see if they'll come in, and you know, any of those would be a contender, right? So that's the third place you look. Now, if all three of those come up short, only then do you say, okay, fine, I'll pay for it and I'll put the time in, post the job. Let's go to a total stranger, right? That's how this stuff works. So by the time you get a posted job, usually it's you're looking at like what's left over. All the really good jobs, they were in the hidden job market. They were filled before it got to that point, right? Now, obviously there's exceptions, but that's generally how it works. Okay. And there might be exceptions for larger organizations that are very, very formalized. Possibly, but as we all know, or a lot of us know, even if they post the job publicly, they still can have an internal candidate lined up, you know, and there still could be something going on behind the scenes there. That's very common. A lot of people have experienced that, so you know what I'm talking about. But that's usually how that works. So wouldn't it be great if you could like get those jobs while they're in like the first, like the hidden part, the first three places that they look? before it gets to being posted. That's this whole other world that it's there. I'm so surprised that they don't teach this to people anymore. Like, I mean, strolling through the front doors of a company and talking to the receptionist is a legitimate way of getting a job. But for some reason, they don't tell anyone that. Anyway, there's a lot more out there than just applying for internet job posting. Okay, once again, I'll come back down to earth. I tend to go on these little rambling trips to nowhere, and then I have to come back down. So I apologize. Where was I here? Okay. Alabra. Yeah, okay. That's the question I was on. Okay, Moonlight. Greetings. What would it take for an interviewer to hire someone with not much qualifications, but as gifted as Steve Jobs? Oh, here we go about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is not as great as everybody makes him out to be. I mean, I don't know how many movies did they make about Steve Jobs that are like mostly fictionalized, turning him into this like super, person, like sort of idealized version of who he actually was. But I take your point. Well, I kind of just said that. Like, networking is the short answer. Networking. If you don't know what networking is, or you've never incorporated that into your job search campaign, that's the answer. Networking is the number one way that people who have jobs get jobs. It's the most common way that people who have jobs have gotten their job. Why is this news to people? It's news to people because who gives advice on how to get a job? Recruiters. A recruiter is usually not going to tell you, oh, you don't need to go through a recruiter, right? That's a conflict of interest. So what they'll tell you is, oh, you must go through a recruiter. Don't even think about going around a recruiter. Yeah. BS. Weapons grade BS. It's networking is the way. And if you take, you're surprised by this or you don't believe me, do your own research. Okay. Don't take my word for it. Go do your own research and you will see that this is the case. Okay. And the great thing is if somebody believes in you, somebody knows you, they trust you, they don't care about work gaps. They don't care about, the things that recruiters care about. Oh, you might have been fired from a job in the past. Like all these little hitches. Oh, you don't have 5 years experience in this. I mean, you got 1, but you don't have 5. Sorry, deal breaker. It's like, no. We all know that a lot of times those requirements are not necessary or they're exaggerated. Okay. If you are dedicated, you're trainable, you got a good work ethic, you got a good attitude, and you have some technical skills, a lot of times you are qualified for the job, despite what the job requirements say that they've posted. Okay? We all know this. The evidence is when they do hire somebody, you look and you see what they have, and you see that a lot of times they are missing one or more of the things that were supposedly essential, when they posted the job. Right? So networking is the answer to that question. Okay, so learn about networking. It's also pretty much the only way that you can get hired if you're changing careers. Okay? Because like I said a little bit earlier, what do recruiters care about? They care about years of experience. That's how they measure how much somebody knows. It's a stupid metric. It has a very general correlation with like how, talented you are, but very poor correlation. So if you're changing careers, by definition, you have no experience in the career you're changing to because you're changing careers. So you haven't worked in that industry yet, right? But does it mean that you're not qualified? Of course not. You have a lot of transportable skills. Okay, but you're wasting your breath trying to convince a recruiter of this because the way they think is nope, apples and oranges, you just don't have it. when you talk to a hiring manager, somebody who's actually doing the job or supervising the people in the role, they'll probably hire you if you have the right attitude, the right soft skills. You have other things that demonstrate your value, and they have a conversation with you about the industry and about how you do things or how it's done. And, you kind of seem on the ball, especially if you click with them. That goes a long way. They're getting a preview of what it would be like to work with you. And if they tell you stuff and you listen and they can see that you're very smart and you're willing to learn and all that stuff, that trumps mechanical requirements any day. There are exceptions. If you work in a regulated industry, sometimes there's just absolutely no getting around it. But for most things, there is. Okay. Sorry to turn every one of these questions into a speech. I really got to get off that. Marishka says, Bill, what do you think about premium version of LinkedIn? I have tried it like a few years ago. I think it's useful for certain things. After having it for like a year or something, I ended the premium membership and I don't really feel deprived. One good thing about, at least several years ago when I did the LinkedIn premium account, was that it allows you to do unrestricted people searches. At least it did. The particular premium account I got, like I know there's different kinds. It allows you to do unrestricted people searches for the stuff that I do and for a lot of the stuff that I recommend, like on this channel, like if you're networking, how to network on LinkedIn with executives, with people like this, CEOs. It's really useful, especially if you haven't built up your own personal network very far. Like I'm at the point where I've built up a big, huge network. So, if I want to do a people search, chances are the results are going to be like a first, second, or third degree connection of mine. But the way LinkedIn works by default is that if the person is not a first, second, or third degree connection of yours, they will not show up in a people search, which kind of defeats the purpose of it. So it's really useful for that, or at least it was for me. But that's all, basically. For me, that's just my own personal usage case. So for what that's worth, that's kind of my 2 cents on that. I know a lot of people have them. It depends how critical LinkedIn is to what you're doing. But for to get into networking, I would recommend they give you the trial period, so you can try it for free. You get the premium account for 1 free month or something like that. So I would get all my ducks in a row, and I would just get the free trial that gives you all the benefits of it for 1 month or something, and just use LinkedIn like nuts. Just do this full on, and and then cancel before that second month rolls around, and then they start charging you. Okay, that's also an option for some people. Alphonse says, I have had interviews with recruiters and they shared that I'm a great candidate and would forward my resume. However, the hiring manager doesn't look excited from the onset. Why might this be the case? Just having that to go on and that's all. I got the impression that it's really a no. It's really a no, but they don't want to deliver bad news. They want to say something nice. So, because that's typical recruiter behavior. They not to beat up on them. There's some really good recruiters out there, but some of them are really spineless and they don't want to give bad news. So when you press them for, an answer or, some feedback, they don't want to give you honest negative feedback. They'll just say something positive instead. Yeah, I forwarded on. So it becomes somebody else's problem. That has been known. I don't know if that's what's going on here, but that might be a part of it. Or it could be legitimate. They could honestly think you're good, and then the hiring manager doesn't agree. Or doesn't agree you're a right fit, But anyway, listen, the important thing, Alphonse, is that the bottom line is that you shouldn't take any of this as some kind of evaluation or, of who you are as a person or as a professional. The only thing that they're evaluating you on is whether you fit what they happen to be looking for. You can be an extremely talented person that can generate a hell of a lot of capital, a lot of wealth. But they, for whatever reason, sometimes deluded reasons, think that another type of person is the way to go, right? You have no control over that. Marishka says, you're welcome, MA. Camilla, okay, I understand. I won't ask that question then, LOL. Thank you. What you said makes sense. Okay. Yeah, as I said, nothing wrong in asking those pointed questions, but it can have this effect. It can be a turnoff. There'll be plenty of time later to get into that stuff. MA, I was earlier referring to advice when doing a job interview from an engineering position while being interviewed by a C-level executive. Okay, so MA, where was that? One is being interviewed by a C-level. Okay, I see. For an engineering position, we interview a C-level. Well, if you're talking to a chief operating officer, in my experience, they're notoriously blunt and crass. That's the effect of being in a high position, so you want to cut to the chase. And also, some of the firewall gets turned off with you being in that position. Secondly, you're a technical authority, so you think you know it all. And thirdly, I don't know. Thirdly, I think it's just maybe like them being several levels up, possibly. But yeah, I've met some chief operating officers, sometimes chief information officers too, that are just the communication skills are not there. They're like, as people, they're like a real fail. Talking to them, they're rude. They have no charisma. They have no ability to have a conversation with somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like I've met people like that, but they always seem to be in those technical areas. That's a weak spot of people in technical areas like engineering. Okay, and I can say this. I've got a degree in engineering. But that's, as a group, engineering and engineers, that's their flaw. Is the communication skills. You really don't get a lot of warm fuzzies talking to a lot of engineers, even though they're fine, upstanding people. It doesn't translate when you're having a conversation with them. So they may ask some pretty blunt questions in there. And your original question was, what specific advice do I have when one is being interviewed by a C-level? Well, they look for high-level stuff. I mean, that's the only real blanket advice I can say about it. They look for higher level stuff. They care more about your ambition. They care more about your attitude. They care more about your values. They care more about your approach to things or your school of thought, right? That's what they care about. They tend to care less about niggling little details of precisely how you do everything. They care about those big picture things, okay? Yeah. But beyond that, it can vary enormously. Sometimes people look for employees that have the ability or have the likelihood to move up and become managers. They have strong people skills, blah, blah. Other times, they intentionally don't look for that. They want employees that are going to stay employees. They don't want initiative. They don't want, lots of advanced communication skills so that you feel like you're underemployed if you're not a supervisor or manager. It really varies across the board. There isn't like a blanket thing that they care about other than generally looking at larger issues. They care less about details. I think the worst thing is, at least in my experience, are executives who think that they're in touch with the people at the bottom, and they try and show this by asking you very detailed, technical, niggling questions. And then if you don't get it exactly right the way they think it should be done, whether that's true or not, then they decide you're a non-starter or something. I've seen that. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. I've seen executives that do that, and it backfires spectacularly for them. Camilla D, is it okay to ask about the turnover? How many years? Okay, we did that. We're going back down to MA here. Okay, Hot Dice Miniature says, hello, company's expert. I reached out to an old hardware manager from a previous co-op or a cooperation to ask for some resume help. His response was very in-depth, but I'm having a bit of difficulty integrating it. Okay. Would you like to comment on the advice here? Okay, so you asked old hardware manager on help on how to write your resume. His response was very in-depth, but I'm having a bit of difficulty. Well, I don't know what you mean by you're having difficulty integrating it. It just doesn't apply to you, or it's too technically detailed. Not really much I can do with that. I mean, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're trying to do. I don't know what jobs you're trying to go for. And I don't know what advice he gave. So it's kind of hard for me to comment on it. All I can say just in general, is general advice, is just get advice from different sources, okay? And if you're doing resumes, like let's see if I can pull something up here. Like I've shown this before. Maybe you know of this, maybe you don't. But for resumes, okay, instead of using a Google search, I actually use Bing for an image search. So you didn't say what actual job you're in other than that it's hardware. I mean, what type of hardware are we talking about? But okay, so resume example. You know, the sun is right on my monitor here, so I can't even see what I'm typing. Let's see here. Resume example IT hardware. I'm just assuming you're in IT, okay? We'll do an image search. Okay, skip all the ads. Okay, so here are examples of what these might look like, okay? Tons of examples, okay? They're talking about repair technician. I mean, I can't even see this. Repair technician, computer hardware technician, principal hardware engineer, computer hardware technician, engineer/designer, hardware technician. So, I mean, you could just scroll through. Here's a ton of examples, okay, of what that type of resume might look like, okay? I'm not saying these are all accurate. I'm not saying even any of them are like the thing you should do, but here's a lot of examples to draw from, okay, that might give you ideas of what might be appropriate, okay? But the best way to find stuff like this, okay, this is an example of a question. You have an industry-related question. And what I started out this live stream by saying was that, you know, a great way to get answers for questions like this, very specific questions that are in your industry and in your region, is to do informational interviews with people high up in your industry. So like, you know, CEOs or owners or general managers of the local businesses. So if you are in IT, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could sit down with the owners and the decision makers at these companies and say, like, look, what kind of skills do you look for? What skills do you think are going to be important in the future that are coming down the pike? What are the changes that are, you know, that we're experiencing? You know, what are some of the, like, what's your opinion on formal education? You know, is a computer engineering degree necessary to be a technician? Is a technologist certificate necessary to be, you know, a hardware technician or hardware designer? You know, things like this. Get their attitudes on this stuff. And then you synthesize that information into what you choose to put on your resume, maybe, you know, something like that. You can also talk to recruiters. Recruiters read resumes. But in your specific case, you were talking about somebody higher up, I believe, right? An old hardware manager. So you can get more. You've got one person's opinion. That's great. Get other people's opinion. Maybe people more directly involved that would be making decisions about hiring people like you. You know, learn how to do informational interviews, how to get them and how to conduct them. And by the way, that's all in my course, incidentally. If you want my version of that all in one place, link in description, shameless plug. But regardless of that, I mean, this is something for you to look into. It's an example of something you can get a lot of really good information on directly from the source. Okay, so investigate that stuff is what I'd say. That's the only thing I really can say. hot dice miniatures. But that is a good question. Camilla D, I have one more question. I applied for a job through Indeed. They got back to me and asked me to apply on their website. It's a county job. I did apply. They messaged me. I got your application. Yeah. So, well, that's kind of what you expect. This is why I've said numerous times, internet job postings are the worst method of getting a job. You know, it's the stuff that's left over. And what you're seeing, all those internet job postings, what you're seeing, that's 20% of all the jobs that are actually out there. The others are not posted publicly. Okay, you get those by reaching out to decision makers, usually people higher up in the organizations, you know, and do it that way. It's called networking. Do research into it if this is all new. Okay, but yeah, I would expect that kind of stuff from these publicly posted internet jobs, like the kind you find on Indeed. Should I contact them or wait? There wasn't anything special on their website or different I put in there. If you want to pursue it, contact them. Why would you wait? Like, you know, so that you can not be the first in line? Like, I mean, I'm just saying, if you want to pursue it, contact them. You don't need anyone's permission. You know, look, they've said they're looking for somebody. You're capable of doing the job. You know, you reach out to them. Hey, I'm here. Here's my resume. Here's my application. Let me know if you want to talk to me. There you go. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the issue on their part? What's the issue, right? And if they're too cool to talk to you, or they don't know what they're doing, or it's not really legitimate anyway, move on. Like, this is the thing. You don't keep looking back. You keep looking for the next opportunity. If I were you, Camilla, and I don't know your situation, so I mean, what do I know? But I would look more in, you know, I would go the networking route. I would investigate that first before really putting a lot of effort and time into like pursuing job postings like this. It's a component of a job search. There's no harm in it, but there's much better, more promising ways to connect with jobs, and the jobs you tend to connect with are of better quality when you go through other means. So also, you save yourself the humiliation, the human degradation of having to go through this process and deal with recruiters and deal with, you know, impersonal websites and all this. It's a very soul-sucking kind of experience, and you know what I mean? There are more positive ways where you actually feel good about yourself when you do the job search. Devendra says, I have 5 years experience with Big Four and completed master's degree. I'm trying to get into another Big Four, different industry. How do I communicate my enthusiasm in an effective way to a hiring manager? Thank you. Well, you do networking. I mean, how do you communicate enthusiasm? Are you talking about like in a meeting? Are you talking about it in a job application? If it's in a meeting, you just work on your soft skills. You work on your conversational skills. You work on your charisma. You know, it's as simple as that. The other thing is that if you do the thing I've been talking about for about half an hour now, the networking route where you reach out to the organization, you're demonstrating your enthusiasm by the fact that you did it. 300 people might have applied for that job online. How many of those do you think contacted the divisional vice president or the CEO or the, I don't know, chief marketing officer, whatever department this is in, and said like, look, you know, I think your work you guys do is fantastic. I'd love to work for your company. I'd love to be able to ask you some questions. You know, could you spare half an hour, you know, something like that, you know, of your convenience. I'd just like to be able to ask you some questions about the industry, you know, whatever. You're the only one that showed up to do that, right? That demonstrates you want to work there. You're not just looking for a job anywhere. You want to work there for them. Okay? That's the biggest proof of enthusiasm that anyone could ever do, right? To reach out and do this and be prepared to go and meet them one-on-one whenever and wherever they say they're free to meet you, right? Because you care about working specifically for them, right? That's the best. That's the best way to demonstrate your enthusiasm. Now, if you're talking on a job application or something, all you can do is write it. You could say it right off the hop. It's like, I think this is a tremendous opportunity. It tends to fit my background and my education and my experience really, really well. So I'm very excited about it. It seems to really tick all the boxes and what I was looking for. And I've heard of your company and you do some great work. You're an industry leader and blah, blah. So I think this is very exciting, and I'm very excited to be able to speak with you. Hopefully we can meet face to face and have a job interview. I don't know what else you would say, if you're doing this over written communication, but something to that effect. Right? You see, there's a difference between communicating your enthusiasm and demonstrating your enthusiasm, right? For example, if you have done some kind of volunteer work or some kind of internship or something like that, that's more of like demonstrating your enthusiasm for something, right? You've proven it. That's much better than communicating it. I mean, communicating is good. It's better than nothing, but demonstrating it is even better. Thank you, Devendra Singh. That's very, very kind of you. I appreciate that. I have to wrap this up in a couple minutes, but I'll take a couple more questions here. I'll see if I can finish this off. ED 1011 says, how to present yourself in a situation where the resume is clearly overqualified for the job, but I elect to down-gauge myself so less money and less headache. Well, okay, if it's as obvious as I believe you're making it out to be, you're going to run into real serious problems with recruiters, or you have a chance of running into some serious issues with a recruiter, because they are trained to think in these terms. Oh, you're overqualified, right? Which means that we don't want you because we just assume that you would only be happy with something more than this. So we're not even going to investigate you. We're going to eliminate you. This is an example of the type of problem that people have with recruiters, just like work gaps, just like changing careers. These are all roadblocks when you're going through a recruiter. And there's legitimate reasons why, okay? But, as I said earlier, the blanket solution to all of these problems is to go the networking route. Because if you have a conversation with the hiring manager and you explain, it's like, after they've gotten to know you, after you ask some very intelligent questions about the industry and about the work they do and all this kind of stuff, and they start to get to like you, right? And then they say, so what about you? What are you doing? And you say, well, I've been in this type of role for the last 5 years. It's, been this role at this level. But, quite frankly, if I could be really honest with you, I find that just the level of stress, or the fact that I'm always on when I'm in that position, I go home and I deal with emails and phone calls. I get phone calls in the middle of the night. I'm always dealing with it. I'm finding it quite tedious. And to be honest with you, I'm just looking for I would be happy with like a sort of technical role down here, not up here, but down here. That's what I would be happy with. That kind of thing. That's kind of my situation. And I was just curious about where the industry is going and, how I might fit into it, if I wanted to stay with it, that kind of thing. Something like that. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. You'd obviously be a little bit more prepared and rehearsed and think it through, but something along those lines. Now, after you've had this great conversation with this person, this executive, this high-level person, they might say, you know what, let me get back to you. We might have an opportunity. I mean, don't get your hopes up, but there might be something. I have to do some checking first, because you see, you've demonstrated everything you need to demonstrate. You're knowledgeable, you're capable, you're great to work with. They've enjoyed interacting with you. All the essentials are there. You've proven it to them. And they're a high-level person that has a bit of power to be able to hire and fire people. So if they want to hire you and there's an opening internally, it may happen. right? So if you're going the route where you're dealing with recruiters, I would try and disguise this. I would hide it. I mean, even if at the point of leaving things off your resume, I don't think that's a great thing, but the solution may include things like that. It might even include stuff like that. Okay. But if you're dealing with recruiters, that's kind of the approach. If you have the option to deal with people higher up and do the networking route, I would prefer that. That's how I would do it. And then resumes and things like that don't matter. I mean, yes, you have to have some qualifications, but they're not judging you on your resume. They're judging you on their interaction with you. They can tell a poser when they see one. They can tell a person that doesn't know anything about an industry when they see one. Someone who told them, oh yeah, I'm a seasoned industry professional. They can tell that you don't know anything. If you said, look, I'm a student, I'm just in school. I was wondering if you could answer a few questions. They'll say, sure. There's absolutely no issues there. By the way. And finally, Alphonse, if you say it that way. I have an interview tomorrow for a director facilities position, having been a manager. How should I approach this considering it's an upgrade to executive? Okay. Well, what their problem, I mean, it could go many different ways, but if it were me walking into this is what I would assume. What they're going to be looking for is they're going to be looking for your solid skills as a manager, okay? There shouldn't be any issue of you demonstrating those, okay? But beyond that, they're obviously going to want to make sure that, as a director, and I'm assuming that the director job means that you're managing managers, right? So you're maybe not a mid-level manager, you're high mid-level manager. I mean, depending on the size of the company. But if you're managing managers, they're going to want to make sure that you are suited to that job, okay? And one of the things involved there that I've seen that can be a problem is if you're so used to being a manager, you can't get away from that type of thinking, okay? And you end up being, when they put you in a director role, you end up being a micromanager. You end up dealing with all the niggling little details that really you shouldn't be dealing with. Okay? That would be my biggest concern, and that's a lot of people's concern when they move you from like a manager to a manager of managers, like a director or executive level. That's kind of the thing. Okay? So that's one thing that you want to be able to speak to. Or if they ask you questions about it, you want to make sure you don't come across as a micromanager. You're unable to get out of that, lower level manager mentality. Okay. The second thing is that as a director, okay, you're going to be more publicly facing. Okay. So this is where people skills come in. You're going to have a little bit more of the PR, public relations related role. Okay. Directly or indirectly. You have to be a walking poster child for their organization. You have to be able to represent their organization even more than you've been doing now. Like I don't know the context of this, so I don't know how it would manifest itself in your case, but they're going to care about that stuff, right? They don't want to put somebody out there as a director, who's really like a grunt, who's really like, they've got dirt on their face and, they supervise tradespeople. Right? Maybe they were a tradesperson once themselves. They were a manager. They've tacked on the management skills. They know about money. They know about projects. They know about, all business related stuff. They can manage money. They can manage people. But you make them a director. Now, the added piece is that they're representing the organization. They have to present. They have to be in a suit all the time. They have to be very professional, very cordial. You can't keep it real, kind of like I'm doing here on the YouTube channel, where I'm just calling things out and saying that's stupid and this is wrong and that's never going to work. You have to tweak how you talk to people. You have to tweak what you say. You could be quoted. You could be filmed. So they're wanting someone that's going to be okay in that role. Okay. Usually that's what a director level type thing involves. If they're trying to close a sale, a big sale, or a deal with a new institutional customer or supplier or something like that, they're going to send you. You're going to be present. And if you say the wrong thing or give the wrong impression or they don't click with you, it could jeopardize the deal. So you have to be tuned into that. You have to be have those people skills in place and have that sort of PR related thing going. I mean, I'm not a master of that. I've done that stuff, but it's not really who I am. But everybody has to take on a little bit of that role when you move up to the director level. So there you go, Alphonse. That could that maybe that was helpful. Anyway, Camilla D says thank you. So I gotta end the stream now. I've got something I have to do. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are all awesome. I see there's 35 people here right now. I wish you the absolute best of luck. Just a reminder, I've got a lot of free videos on my YouTube channel that cover a lot of things about job interviews. And I also have, where is it? This is the latest sort of serious video I did that isn't a podcast. Check it out on my channel if you haven't seen it already, if that's interesting to you. And if you're at an impasse or you're wanting to learn networking or you want the whole how to get a job thing all in one place from beginning to end, covering multiple ways of getting a job, I put all that together in this course. Sort of a one-stop shop for this whole sordid business. Check that out. Link in the description, and there's also a video that gives you more details about how it works. So there you go. Camilla D sends a super chat. Wow, thank you, Camilla D. That's awesome of you. You are especially awesome. You have won a virtual handshake from a former executive. So that's what it looks like. And the prestige, too. So thank you very much. Thank you to everybody. I will be back tomorrow, same time, with my other live stream, which is about side hustles and covers more startup entrepreneurship type stuff. If you are interested in that, check out those live streams. I love talking about that. That's actually more of my core competency, is growing businesses and stuff. So I love talking about it. It's a way for you to not live this corporate life your entire life. If you want to break free, break out of this cycle of being an employee and really harness all your talent and your creativity to make you a lot of money and do it entirely on your own terms, maybe consider stepping into that world too. Thanks very much. Take care, everyone. I'll see you soon.